Are you a lifelong fan of General Hospital?
Are you a new fan who wants to know more about the history of the show?
Do you enjoy talking about the show with others?
Do you find yourself yelling at the TV?
Is your self-care an hour a day in Port Charles?
If so, we invite you to join hosts
Amanda Kimmel
and Shannon Coach at the place where all the hidden conversations take place and secrets are revealed.
Meet us at Pier 54,
a General Hospital fan podcast.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the Port Charles 411. Today we are going back to just Lucky because Lucky and Liz aren't together and they're not doing stuff together. There's a couple times where Liz will pop up, they'll have a quick conversation or something like that, but it's not really, they're not involved in something together and they're not together. Does that make sense?
Yes. Unfortunately, they were making other romantic choices.
Yeah, when we last left off, Lucky was starting a relationship with a girl named Summer, and Liz was with Rick. I think, were they married at that point?
I don't think they were married yet. It didn't say that they had got married.
Okay, so this episode is going to cover February 20th, 2003 through June 2004. So, I mean, that's almost a year and a half.
Right.
And this is where we started with Greg Vaughn. That's right.
Yes.
February 20th, 2003 was Greg Vaughn's first episode. So we kind of just dropped off at the last episode with Luke walking in on Lucky and Summer. And she got all offended because he said something very, very insensitive that made it sound like she was working him instead of liking him, I guess.
Yes.
So, of course, I say that, Lucky and Liz are together, yet the first sentence is, while dropping off papers for Bobby at General Hospital, Lucky ran into Liz. They caught up about school, and he confided in her about his breakup with Summer. Liz advised him not to let Summer push him away too easily. If he cared about her, he should fight for their relationship. Meanwhile, Summer met Luke at his club, where he invited her on a trip to a roadhouse outside of town. She agreed, opening up about how she found the outside world cold and was afraid to let herself get close to anyone. Luke admitted that he had once felt the same way until he met Laura. Summer doubted she would ever find that kind of love. Later, Lucky waited outside of Summer's apartment, apologizing for pressuring her into a relationship. She told him she wasn't willing to risk caring about him and turned down his invitation for a date. When she mentioned having plans with a friend, Lucky grew suspicious, asking if it was the older guy. Now remember, Luke calls Summer only Laura, and Lucky calls Summer. He doesn't know that she also goes by Laura.
Right.
Right? Yeah, I think that's
right. And has no idea that this older guy is his dad.
Right. But that's part of it. They call her a different name.
Right.
Summer insisted that their relationship was platonic, but didn't reveal that the man was Luke. At Kelly's, Nikolas updated Lucky on Laura's condition. This is when she was in her catatonic state. But Lucky refused to accept his brother's grim outlook. When Nikolas suggested even Luke had moved on, Lucky was furious and stormed off to confront his father. That night, Summer met Luke at his club before their date and admitted she couldn't keep pretending to be Laura for him. She needed her own life. Luke guessed her change of heart had to do with another man, and Summer confirmed it in a roundabout way. She asked if they could still be friends, and Luke agreed, telling her she should go after the relationship if it was what she wanted. He put on some music, and they started to slow dance just as Lucky walked in. Lucky froze, stunned to see them together so intimately, and then the realization hit him like a punch. His father was the older friend Summer had been seeing all along. Reeling, Lucky went to Kelly's and confided in Nikolas. He speculated that Summer had known exactly what she was doing, playing both him and Luke for money. Enraged, he decided to confront Luke. Meanwhile, Summer arrived at Kelly's looking for Lucky. Nikolas coldly informed her that Lucky now knew the truth. Summer was shocked. She had never realized that Luke was Lucky's father. At Luke's club, Lucky confronted his father, warning him that Summer could have an ulterior motive. But Luke defended her, saying she had stepped into his life when he was at his lowest. When Summer arrived, Luke introduced her to Lucky as if they were meeting for the first time. Lucky, however, was in no mood for games. He bluntly questioned her about her past, but Luke shut him down, demanding that he show respect. After Lucky left, Luke assured Summer that in some time Lucky would come around. Later, Summer found Lucky at Kelly's, but he was ice cold towards her. He accused her of deliberately playing both him and his father, warning her not to hurt Luke. Summer, furious, slapped him and insisted she had no hidden agenda. Lucky, however, was unmoved. telling her to go back to Luke. His father had been hard enough. Scott overheard the argument and inserted himself, chastising Lucky before offering to buy Summer some coffee. Over their conversation, Scott correctly guessed what had happened with Lucky and Luke, leaving Summer speechless. On the docks, Lucky brooded until Luke found him and asked what was wrong. Lucky vaguely admitted that he had been wrong about someone he once thought was special but didn't name Summer. Luke advised him to trust his first instinct about her rather than what he assumed now. Meanwhile, Scott took his meddling to Luke's club, where he noticed balloons and a birthday banner. He realized they were for Summer and accused Luke of using her as a replacement for Laura. He then dropped a bombshell. Summer had been seeing Lucky too. Luke was stunned, but it masked his reaction, throwing Scott out of his club. When Summer arrived for her birthday celebration, she was overwhelmed by the gesture, but Luke's mood had shifted. He finally admitted that he knew about her and Lucky. At first, he kept his distance, but when Summer insisted she had genuinely never known that they were father and son, he softened. She confessed she loved him, but Luke gently told her it wasn't love, it was gratitude for helping her start a new life. Though he had enjoyed their time together, his heart would always belong to Laura. Heartbroken, Summer left. Later, Luke ran into Lucky on the docks. He assured his son that nothing had ever happened between him and Summer and urged him not to give up on her. She and Lucky, Luke said, had a chance at something real. Later at Kelly's, Lucky met with Nikolas, who warned him to be cautious of Summer and her motives. Nikolas also expressed unease about her spending time with Lulu. Lucky defended Summer, insisting she was special and shouldn't be judged for her past as a prostitute. Their conversation shifted to Laura's care, with Nikolas explaining that he had taken over as her guardian when Luke was unwell. Lucky argued that Luke had recovered and should be involved. That evening, Summer visited Lucky in his room above Kelly's, asking for a second chance. Suspicious, Lucky questioned her motives, suspecting that Luke had influenced her decision. Summer admitted Luke had encouraged her, but their past games were over and they were just friends now. Unconvinced, Lucky accused her of using both him and Luke, cruelly remarking that she was acting like a hooker. Hurt and angry, Summer called things off again and stormed out. Twice now that he's made her feel that way. I mean, I think the first time he didn't explicitly say it, but it's kind of like in Pretty Woman.
Right.
When Richard Gere says, "I never made you feel like that," and she's like, "You just did." There he did. There Lucky 100% did. God, that was such a good movie. Afterward, she received a call from her former madam and met her at the grill, reminiscing about her past. Meanwhile, Lucky confronted Luke, accusing him of sending Summer to him like a client. Luke denied it, insisting that Summer had come to Lucky on her own will. Lucky, realizing he had been unfair, apologized.
Elsewhere, Jax and Summer connected over drinks, and he offered her $1,500 instead of the $1,000 she had initially asked for. However, their evening was interrupted when he had to step away for a call from Ned. I don't see Jax needing to hire a hooker. Every woman in Port Charles was throwing themselves at him.
Was it for a reason, though? Was he hiring more as an escort and not necessarily was he hiring her for company and not company?
Maybe. I guess we'll find out, but I find it hard that Jax would need to hire anyone for anything. While waiting at the bar, Summer was approached by Scott, who taunted her about wasting her time on a married man. When Luke briefly appeared and gave her only a polite smile before leaving, Summer was disappointed. Later, she received a note from Jax expressing interest in seeing her again. Back at Kelly's, Luke and Lucky clashed over Laura's guardianship. Surprisingly, Lucky agreed that Nikolas should remain in control, as Luke was too emotionally involved. Luke accused him of siding with Nikolas out of resentment over Summer. Lucky countered that he no longer cared about Luke's connection to her, as they were no longer together. Summer overheard and in frustration called an old client. When Lucky confronted her, asking if she was still working as a prostitute, she dismissed him, saying her choices were none of his business. Nikolas arrived and warned Lucky that Summer was still manipulating them. Luke, fed up with Nikolas's interference, reminded him that he wasn't in charge of their lives. Nikolas retorted that Luke had a destructive effect on women. One had rejected him and the other one had lost her mind. Enraged, Luke punched him. Instead of backing Luke up, Lucky told him his actions only proved Nikolas right about being unfit to care for Laura. Unbeknownst to Luke and Lucky, Summer was secretly working for Nikolas. Meeting in private, Nikolas reminded her that she had been doing what he paid her to from the start. As tension escalated, Luke planned a trip to London to see Laura. Summer tried to talk him out of it, but he ignored her concerns, promising to call when he returned. Meanwhile, Nikolas urged Liz to rekindle her relationship with Lucky, but she refused, stating that she had moved on. Later, Summer and Lucky ran into each other on the docks. Lucky admitted he believed she had an agenda, but still couldn't stop thinking about her. Their conversation was interrupted by Nikolas, who reminded Lucky of Summer's profession. Lucky once again defended her, but when she confirmed she had gone back to sex work, he walked away. Moments later, Summer was abducted. At Luke's club, Scott presented Luke with a restraining order, barring him from visiting Laura. When Lucky arrived, Luke accused Nikolas of trying to keep him away from her and demanded Lucky take his side. Meanwhile, Summer was delivered to Nikolas, who reminded her that if she wanted information on her missing brother, she had to cut Lucky out of her life. Nikolas, blaming Luke for his mother's catatonic state, was determined to keep him away from her. With no other choice, Summer agreed to Nikolas's terms. As the legal battle over Laura continued, Luke urged Lucky to fight for guardianship. However, Lucky admitted he had willingly given control to Nikolas, infuriating Luke, who accused him of betraying their mother. Meanwhile, Luke and Summer's relationship grew increasingly complicated. They nearly slept together, but Summer pulled away at the last moment. Frustrated, Luke demanded honesty, but she left in a hurry, only to meet with Nikolas, expressing guilt over their arrangement. Meanwhile, Luke and Lucky argued again, with Lucky accusing Luke of using Summer as a distraction from Laura. Well, of course he was. That is something that everybody does if they can't have who they want and somebody else comes along. It's called a rebound relationship for a reason. On the docks, Lucky warned Summer that Luke would eventually discard her, and she seemed shaken by the truth of his words. When she later confided in Luke about her missing brother, Nikolas cut her off, telling her their deal was over. Determined to take back control, Luke confronted Nikolas at the hospital and demanded he return guardianship of Laura. To his shock, Nikolas agreed, but only on the condition that Luke visit Laura at the new facility first. Luke accepted and left to see her. Meanwhile, Lucky and Summer planned to search Windermere for clues about her brother. Breaking into a safe in the estate's tunnels, Summer found a photo of her brother, seemingly taken on Cassadine Island. She secretly pocketed something else, which Lucky caught her doing. Before they could escape, Nikolas had them locked inside. While trapped, Lucky confronted Summer about the item she had taken, an antique coin. Summer insisted Nikolas owed her, but Lucky doubted she had been honest with him from the start. Just then, Luke arrived, having overheard Laura's doctors blaming Nikolas for keeping them apart. Luke declared that the Spencer Cassadine war was back on. Lucky, refusing to escalate things, convinced him not to set fire to Windermere. Instead, they focused on uncovering the truth about Summer's brother. So Luke later visited Nikolas in the hospital, demanding he sign over Laura's care. Nikolas agreed, but required Luke to visit Laura's new facility again. Before leaving, Luke encountered Lucky and Summer, who were strategizing about her brother. Summer later confronted Nikolas, who denied knowing anything about her brother's location. Calling him a liar, she stormed out. Determined to find answers, Lucky and Summer sneaked into Windermere again. This time they found evidence suggesting her brother was in Greece. However, before they could act, Nikolas's staff trapped them in the estate tunnels once more. You would think they would learn by now.
I was going to say, so this happened again.
Right.
All of it. Okay.
With tensions reaching a boiling point, Luke made a bold move, blinding Nikolas with a bright light and leaving him writhing in pain on the hospital floor. Meanwhile, Lucky and Summer debated their next move, realizing that uncovering the truth about her brother might be their only way to expose Nikolas and his schemes. Luke warned Alexis he would stop Nikolas after receiving a restraining order against him and Lucky. Alexis accused Luke of perpetuating the Spencer-Cassadine feud in Laura's name. Meanwhile, Summer found a postcard at Windermere and hid it. When Nikolas caught Summer and Lucky snooping, he confronted Lucky about his distrust. Lucky blamed Nikolas for keeping secrets about Laura's care, while Nikolas insisted he had only distracted Luke to protect Lucky from his reckless actions. Nikolas had Summer arrested but let Lucky go. When the officer tried to cuff Summer, Lucky punched him, and they escaped through a tunnel, later making love. When Lucky discovered the hidden postcard, Summer reluctantly showed it to Luke.
I'm sorry, if I was running for my life, I feel like sex is the last thing I would be concerned with. I never understand this. It's not even like they made it to the cabin and they've just been sitting around.
Right. If it was a matter... Right, if it was a matter of, oh my gosh, we escaped, like this is a celebration of our relief that we're safe, okay, maybe. But when you're still in danger, it's not like, you know what, we're trying to escape, we're on limited time, but let's take a moment and hook up. Like,
right.
No.
It's like when Sonny and Brenda were trapped in the cave, though, and they thought they were going to die. Kind of makes sense. But at the same time,
if you are pretty certain it's your last moments, okay, then sure. But if there's any chance of surviving, I'm not wasting time for that.
No.
Summer, fearing for her ex-boyfriend Matt's safety, agreed to let Luke and Lucky find him. After dodging the police, Luke provided a van and cash. Summer returned to being a call girl, and Lucky learned Nikolas had hired her to distract Luke. When confronted, Summer admitted Nikolas blackmailed her into impersonating Laura, but claimed meeting Lucky was an accident.
Their quest led them to Russia, where they found only worthless coins instead of treasure. Returning to Port Charles, Luke continued searching for Matthew. Summer flirted with Sonia, a contact of Matt's, while Luke and Lucky found a rare coin in her purse, which was identical to the one that Summer had stolen from Nikolas. Sonia called Nikolas, revealing that they had fallen for a trap. Nikolas later received a call from a South American woman with ties to Matt, confirming that Lucky and Luke had the coin. Wearing disguises, Luke won a gold coin at an auction, leading him to Matt. Before dying from a stab wound, Matt confirmed he wasn't related to Summer. Luke was arrested for Matt's murder and demanded leverage against Nikolas. Summer confessed she and Matt were con artists, and Nikolas had manipulated her into distracting Luke while he searched for the lost Cassadine fortune in Russia. Luke theorized the coins were linked to the missing treasure and accused Nikolas of using Summer to find it. Despite his vendetta, Luke, Lucky, and Summer were stunned when Nikolas bailed them out. Luke refused his help, warning Lucky to watch his back. Nikolas took Lucky and Summer to his hotel, warning Lucky not to trust her. While Lucky was torn, Summer flirted with both brothers. Lucky and Nikolas later spied on Summer at Matt's funeral, where a man named Roberto revealed that he knew she was Matt's lover. Summer tried to seduce him for information and was instead restrained. Lucky and Nikolas intervened, discovering Roberto had Luke's passport, and when Roberto threatened them, Lucky disarmed him. On Nikolas's jet, Summer pretended to sleep as she overheard Nikolas confirming he had used her to manipulate Luke. Later in their hotel room, Summer seduced Lucky. Nikolas arrived with blueprints for the Cassadine estate, warning Lucky to keep them from Summer. He stole them anyway and ended up at the estates. When someone tells you they're a con artist...
Right? Don't discuss sensitive information in front of them.
And it's not like, I mean, okay, so I did not go back and watch this, so I don't know, but it's not like she was trying to escape working with him and she just had to finish this one and then she could be free.
Right.
I don't think that was, I could be wrong. I don't remember, first of all, watching this when it originally started, and I did not watch it as part of this recap. So, but either way, she said, oh yeah, by the way, not my brother. That's my lover. Ew. So she stole them anyway and ended up at the estate, which was now a bordello, where she was nearly assaulted before Luke saved her. Nikolas and Lucky tracked Summer to the bordello, where Nikolas questioned an old acquaintance. Meanwhile, Luke confronted Summer about her feelings for Lucky. Lucky arrived and accused Summer of betraying him again. Luke took the blame, revealing she had only recently allied with him. As Lucky grew disillusioned with both Luke and Nikolas, Luke stole the blueprints and escaped just as Nikolas arrived. Nikolas stormed in, demanding Summer hand over the blueprints. She coolly informed him that he was too late. Luke had already taken off with them. Lucky suggested Nikolas go after him, noting that Luke couldn't have gone far, but Nikolas refused. Instead, he turned his anger on Summer, calling her the B word. Without hesitation, Lucky stepped in to defend her, made it clear he wasn't taking sides. He had come to the realization he was his own person and not just Luke's son, and that both he and Luke were equally at fault for their ongoing war. Nikolas left and Lucky confronted Summer. He questioned why he tolerated her betrayals when, under any other circumstance, he would have cut someone out like her out of his life a long time ago. Summer seemed disappointed by his words, but offered no response. Later, Lucky and Nikolas followed a lead to an abandoned underground tunnel once owned by the Cassadines, searching for a hidden fortune. While investigating, Lucky grew increasingly frustrated with Nikolas's constant jabs at Summer and himself for trusting her. Their search was interrupted by a woman's scream, followed by a crashing sound. They rushed to the source and found Summer was trapped beneath a fallen gravestone, and working together, they freed her. Nikolas insisted she should leave, but Lucky once again defended her. Summer refused to go, arguing that she had just as much right to the treasure as they did. She had worked just as hard to get there. Taking charge, Lucky grabbed the tire iron and began hammering at a section of the wall. Nikolas disapproved of Lucky's reckless approach, but when they uncovered a hidden passage, he had to admit there was something behind the stone wall. Inside the secret chamber, they were shocked to find Luke was already there. Summer pried open a crate and found a stack of cash, only for Nikolas to examine it and realize it was all counterfeit. Luke confirmed that the money was worthless, except as a collector's item. Summer, realizing all her efforts were for nothing, was furious. Piecing it together, Lucky and Nikolas deduced that Matt must have stolen the real fortune and been killed for it. Luke, meanwhile, turned his fury on Lucky, accusing him of siding with Nikolas yet again. He declared he was done, and Lucky left. Luke wasted no time scheming and met Edward at Kelly's with a plan to bring down the Cassadine Empire. He proposed that with a $5 million investment, they could push the Cassadines over the edge and pick up the pieces. Lucky interrupted, trying to dissuade Edward, but the businessman told Luke that he would consider it. Meanwhile, Nikolas and Emily continued their charade of pretending to be in love, a ruse which was meant to spare Emily the embarrassment of appearing vulnerable to Xander as she battled chemotherapy. Though initially hesitant, Nikolas played along, even kissing Emily when Summer unexpectedly arrived. Summer, however, later confessed to Nikolas that she truly loved Lucky. Hoping to ease the tensions between father and son, Summer met with Luke and urged him to end the war with Nikolas for Lucky's sake. Luke dismissed her concerns, claiming that Lucky had already chosen his side, and if he got caught in the crossfire, so be it.
Meanwhile, Lucky confronted Nikolas, warning him that Luke was coming after him. Nikolas, unwavering, stated that if Luke made a move against him, he would defend himself. Luke, still seeking financial support for his revenge, approached Sonny, who surprised him by refusing to help. Luke justified his actions by blaming Nikolas for preventing him from helping Laura recover, but Sonny refused to go against what he believed Laura would have wanted, protection for her son. Determined, Luke visited Laura's hospital, but promised the doctors he wasn't there to cause a scene. He was stunned when the doctors mentioned that a Cassadine had recently visited Laura, not Nikolas, but Stefan. Enraged, Luke stormed off. Meanwhile, Lucky spoke with Liz about the direction of her life and expressed concern about her marriage to Rick. Yuck. When Summer arrived at Kelly's, Liz made a quick exit. Lucky told Summer he wanted her to leave prostitution behind, suggesting she work at Kelly's as a waitress. He even offered her a room across from his, rent-free, if she took the job. Summer agreed to consider it. Later, Luke confronted Nikolas,
How did he have the right to give her free room?
Because Bobby was
He must have talked to Bobby.
Yeah, I'm assuming that.
Okay.
I'm assuming that's why. I mean, it makes sense. I'm sure Bobby didn't want anyone in prostitution from her background either. So,
right. Yeah. Sorry.
You're good. Later, Luke confronted Nikolas, accusing him of covering for Stefan. When Nikolas denied involvement, Luke stormed into Windermere's tunnels, searching for proof. Lucky, realizing he needed closure, visited his mother and was devastated to see firsthand how much she had deteriorated. He later confronted Stefan, accusing him of interfering with Laura's care, but Stefan denied it. In response, Stefan revealed that Nikolas had been aware of his actions all along. Nikolas arrived during their argument, and Stefan urged him to declare his loyalty to the Cassadines. However, both Nikolas and Lucky rejected their father's feud, agreeing that the war would end with them. Luke, still on a rampage, accused Stefan of moving Laura to another facility, but it was Nikolas who revealed the truth. He had relocated Laura to protect her from being used as a pawn in Luke and Stefan's war. Lucky had agreed with the decision, keeping the location secret from both men. Furious, Luke accused Lucky of betraying his heritage, calling him a Cassadine, not a Spencer. The confrontation escalated when Luke barged into Lucky's room at Kelly's, demanding to know Laura's whereabouts. When Lucky refused, Luke attacked him. Summer intervened, but Luke lashed out, knocking her onto the bed. Enraged, Lucky retaliated, grabbing his father by the throat. Luke fought back, choking Lucky again until Summer struck him on the head with a ceramic figurine, rendering him unconscious. Lucky and Summer rushed Luke to the hospital where Tony examined him. When Luke woke up, he bitterly rejected Lucky's concern and accused him of betrayal. Luke later escaped, ransacking Stefan's office for information. In a drunken haze, he mistook Summer for Laura, pouring his heart out to her. Summer, heartbroken for him, briefly played along until Lucky arrived to break the illusion. Luke's downward spiral continued when he held a knife to Cameron's throat, demanding Laura's location. Lucky arrived in time to stop him, but Luke collapsed unconscious. At the hospital, Lucky was devastated to see his father restrained, with Tony warning that Luke was on a dangerous path. Lucky wrestled with a painful choice when he received commitment papers for Luke. Either sign them or risk his father being released to harm himself and others. Summer tried to reason with Luke, explaining how torn Lucky was, but Luke dismissed it, believing Lucky had already chosen Nikolas over him. Meanwhile, Lucky encountered Lydia when she needed her tire changed. He teased her about being spoiled, and she later referred to him as a commoner in front of Nikolas, who informed her that Lucky was his brother. Nikolas and Emily quickly grew to dislike Lydia, recognizing her snobbish nature. Lydia confided in Stefan that Nikolas was love-struck by Emily. Summer visited Luke at the hospital, where he manipulated her into untying his restraints by insisting he was heartbroken, not crazy. Once free, he asked her to get Laura's location from Lucky. Seducing Lucky, Summer got him to reveal that Laura was at Ferncliff, only for Lucky to immediately realize her deception. However, Summer later revealed to Luke that she and Lucky had tricked him. Determined, Luke snuck into Ferncliff but was locked inside a room. Cameron arrived with an orderly and revealed that Lucky had agreed to have him committed. Summer visited, but Luke refused to help him escape. Luke grew frantic, and an orderly escorted Summer out, leaving her visibly shaken. Lucky was surprised when Nikolas and Emily announced their engagement, inviting him to a party. Lucky agreed on the condition that Summer could come as his date. Nikolas reluctantly accepted. At the event, Stefan welcomed Lucky as Nikolas's brother, shaking his hand in front of the guests. Meanwhile, Luke had escaped Ferncliff and was hiding in the bushes and watching with disgust. Later, Summer spotted Luke in the bushes but didn't alert anyone. She met him secretly at the gate, but when she claimed not to know Laura's location, he became enraged. Accusing her of lying, he violently shook her and threatened to throw her over the cliff. Before he could act, Emily arrived and interrupted. Realizing he wouldn't get answers, Luke stormed off, vowing to find Laura. Emily advised Summer not to get caught in the Cassadine-Spencer war. Meanwhile, a hitman hired by Stefan lurked in the shadows, waiting for a chance to kill Emily. When Emily wandered off into the thick fog, a figure shoved a woman over the bluff. Hearing the scream, the guests rushed to the scene. Nikolas panicked, fearing Emily had fallen. Stefan, satisfied, assumed his plan had succeeded. However, when Emily appeared, Xander embraced her in relief, and Stefan was dismayed. Nikolas and Lucky searched the bottom of the bluff and found Summer's lifeless body. Devastated, Lucky cradled her as Nikolas confirmed she was dead.
So perky.
She was dead. There's that one there was no coming back from.
As the tragedy unfolded, Scott arrested Luke. A distraught Lucky accused his father of murder, but Alexis, having seen the genuine shock in Luke's eyes, believed that he was innocent. At the PCPD, Scott insisted he had boot prints proving Luke pushed Summer. Boot prints don't prove that you pushed somebody.
No, just that you were standing there at some point in time over the night.
Yep. But Lucky suspected that Stefan was framing him. Determined to find the truth, Lucky investigated Windermere. Guard hinted that Stefan's man Darius was present the night of Summer's death, but had since vanished. Before Lucky could dig deeper, one of Stefan's goons grabbed him roughly. As Lucky investigated Summer's murder, Stefan's new guard hauled him in roughly. Lydia, displeased with how Lucky was being handled, insisted that Stefan make the guard release him, citing that Nikolas wouldn't approve. Stefan relented but ordered Lucky thrown off the property. Lydia, intervening again, insisted that Lucky should be allowed to leave on his own. Before departing, Lucky warned Stefan that he was watching him. Stefan questioned Lydia's interference, and she argued that antagonizing Lucky would only make him suspicious and more determined to investigate. Later, Lucky lingered near the bluff at Windermere, hiding in the bushes as he overheard Nikolas and Lydia talking. Once Nikolas left, Stefan approached Lydia and was frustrated by his constant need for control. She suggested he let her execute her own plan to marry Nikolas, as his previous efforts had failed. Stefan insisted that he always acted in Nikolas's best interest before storming off. Once alone, Lucky confronted Lydia, demanding to know what she and Stefan were plotting. Lydia dismissed his concerns, but Lucky theorized that the killer had likely hidden behind those same bushes, waiting for the right moment to push a woman off the bluff. Panic-stricken, Lydia tried to walk away, but Lucky grabbed her arm, insisting the conversation was not over. Startled, Lydia lost her balance and nearly fell over the bluff. Lucky caught her just in time. Despite her initial resistance, Lydia felt drawn to Lucky. He informed her that he knew she was working with Stefan. Later, Lucky confronted Nikolas, accusing him of hypocrisy for condemning Summer's past while effectively prostituting himself and marrying Lydia for money. Nikolas dismissed Lucky's accusations, stating that love could strike suddenly like lightning. Meanwhile, Lucky sought to access Summer's autopsy report but was denied. At the hospital, Lydia mocked Lucky's presence and made it clear that he had no intention of supporting her marriage to Nikolas. Stefan began to see Lydia as a liability, fearing her guilt over Summer's murder would drive her to confess his plot to murder Emily. Meanwhile, Nikolas urged Xander to stay with Emily despite his own feelings for her. Lucky shared his theory with Emily that she, not Summer, had been the intended target. Emily was startled but unconvinced that Stefan would go to such lengths. She urged Lucky not to accuse Stefan without proof. Determined to expose the truth, Lucky told Lydia about his suspicions regarding Stefan's role in Summer's death. Their intense conversation turned into a passionate moment witnessed by Nikolas. Lydia realized they had been caught and abruptly pulled away and slapped Lucky, pretending that he had forced himself on her. Nikolas, however, saw through the deception and warned her against infidelity. Alone with Lucky, Nikolas questioned why he constantly antagonized Lydia. Lucky claimed that he wanted to expose her deceit so Nikolas could be freed to be with Emily. When Lucky revealed his theory about Stefan's involvement in Summer's death, Nikolas was skeptical, but admitted that the idea had some logic. Cassadine accused of murder. Yeah. That's all the logic you need. Stefan interrupted, feigning outrage at Lucky's accusations. Nikolas defended Lucky, stating that grief over Summer's death was clouding his judgment, but Stefan insisted it was no excuse. Alexis, seeking Stefan's help in regaining custody of baby Christina, not sister, remember sister died already, this is baby,
Yep.
agreed to realign with the Cassadines in exchange for his assistance. When Lucky and Scott confronted Stefan, accusing him of orchestrating Summer's murder, Stefan feigned innocent, claiming the servant responsible had died. Lucky pressed Alexis for support, but she only affirmed that Luke was not the killer. Privately, she confronted Stefan, who reminded her of what was at stake for Christina. Determined to prove Stefan's guilt, Lucky asked Mac to see evidence against Luke, believing that it would implicate Stefan instead. However, Mac challenged Lucky to complete the police academy if he truly wanted access to the case. Realizing she was in danger, Lydia confessed Stefan's involvement in Summer's murder to Lucky. Meanwhile, Lucky comforted Liz as she broke down over Rick's dire condition. Lydia, observing their connection, questioned Lucky about his history with Liz. Lucky explained that they were once close, just as Emily and Nikolas had been. Lydia suspected that Stefan, unaware of Emily's illness, still saw her as a threat. She considered telling him the truth to ensure Emily's safety. Lucky and Lydia agreed that Nikolas truly loved Emily. Lydia worried that Stefan might still view Emily as a risk. Nikolas reassured Stefan that he didn't believe he was involved in Summer's death and promised to make his marriage to Lydia work. After Stefan left, Lucky emerged from a hidden passage questioning Nikolas's sincerity. Nikolas insisted that they needed Stefan to believe he was winning to gather concrete evidence. Lucky was worried Nikolas wouldn't be able to stay objective, but Nikolas assured him that his uncle had become unrecognizable the moment he tried to kill Emily. They agreed, and as long as Lydia remained a potential heir-bearer, she would be safe. Lydia then confessed that she overheard Stefan berating Darius for pushing the wrong woman off the bluff, but had stayed silent to secure her inheritance. Nikolas and Lucky believed her. They were determined to push their plan forward. Nikolas and Lydia staged a kiss, expecting Stefan to interrupt, but it was Lucky that walked in. Lydia told him to leave, insisting that she and Nikolas needed to act like a real couple. Lucky doubted Stefan would buy it, and once alone, Nikolas asked if Lucky's issue was that he didn't want Nikolas to sleep with Lydia. Lucky denied caring about her, insisting she was only useful if she testified against Stefan. However, Lydia overheard him and was hurt that she was merely a means to an end.
Lydia later met Lucky on the docks, revealing that Darius was alive and blackmailing Stefan online. Lucky, unsurprised, told her the plan was working perfectly. Lydia, however, feared for her life, arguing that Stefan would kill her if he discovered the deception. When Lucky mentioned Stefan had arranged a meeting with Darius, Lydia pointed out the flaw. There could be no meeting since Darius wasn't actually alive. Lucky assured her that he had a plan, refusing to disclose it. Lydia, terrified, demanded to know how he intended to get Stefan to confess. Lucky merely smiled, his eyes gleaming, as he looked straight at her. Lydia was the key to trapping Stefan once and for all. Lydia immediately realized from Lucky's expression that he expected her to record Stefan confessing to his role in Summer's death. She argued that Stefan frequently threatened her life, never fully trusted her, and would not be foolish enough to fall for the plan. However, Lucky insisted that Stefan, believing she had kept his secret, would let something slip. After witnessing Lucky and Nikolas worry over Emily, Lydia decided to go through with the plan. She met Stefan at the hospital, turning on her recorder before placing it in her purse. When Stefan questioned why she had summoned him there instead of speaking at home, she reminded him that he had previously insisted they couldn't discuss matters at Windermere. She claimed that Darius had contacted her, blackmailing her for money and threatening to go to the police. Lydia successfully tricked Stefan into agreeing to pay off Darius, capturing his admission on tape. Just then, two men grabbed Stefan, demanding payment before dragging him away. Lydia smirked, saying, "Gotcha!" Later, she met Lucky and revealed that she had Stefan's confession. However, after listening to the tape, Lucky concluded it wasn't enough. His focus remained on Emily, and he informed Lydia there was nothing more he could do for her. At the hospital, Liz approached Lucky and Lydia. Lucky informed Liz that Emily had meningitis and suffered a seizure. Liz and Lucky embraced, promising to spend more time together once this crisis passed, while Lydia watched. Later, as the doctor updated Monica, Xander, Liz, and Lucky, Xander went to see Emily while Liz and Lucky embraced again until Rick appeared. Lucky demanded Rick leave, but Rick told Liz the charges against him had been dropped, offering him a fresh start. Liz, stunned, told Rick that he had hurt her, but what he had done to Carly was far worse and that he belonged in jail. She declared she no longer cared for him and left with Lucky. And that was whenever he took Carly captive, which was insane.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yes. Later, Lydia met Lucky at Windermere, explaining that since Emily had chosen Xander, Nikolas had turned to her and might now try to make their marriage work. She refused to risk alienating Nikolas by continuing to trap Stefan. Lucky warned her that Nikolas still loved Emily, but Lydia insisted Nikolas might have genuine feelings for her. She declared she was done playing detective. As she picked up her tape, Lucky cautioned that she could be Stefan's next victim. At that moment, Stefan arrived, prompting Lydia to quickly hide the recorder in her purse. Stefan ordered Lucky to leave, which he did gladly. Once alone, Lydia assured Stefan she had told Lucky she would no longer assist in the investigation. She also claimed she was making progress with Nikolas and that they would have no issue producing an heir within the required 5-year period. Meanwhile, Stefan confronted Nikolas, complaining that Lucky had been snooping around Windermere and pressuring Lydia. He asked Nikolas to intervene and make Lucky back off. Nikolas, unsurprised, agreed to speak with Lucky but made no promises. Lucky later found Lydia outside Emily's hospital room and questioned her presence. Lydia revealed she had recorded Stefan's confession. Lucky urged her to play the tape somewhere private, so they went to his room above Kelly's. Listening to the tape, Lucky was pleased. However, Lydia admitted Nikolas knew about the recording and he had discovered it, but she assured Lucky that Stefan remained unaware. Lucky worried that Nikolas would still try to protect Stefan and insisted he needed to safeguard his own father from being wrongfully imprisoned for Summer's murder. Determined not to wait any longer, he decided to take the take the tape to Max Scorpio before it fell into the wrong hands. Before he could, Nikolas arrived, requesting to hear the tape. Lucky hesitated, fearing Nikolas would protect Stefan. He reminded Nikolas that the tape was the only evidence they had to clear Luke and implicate Stefan. Nikolas, torn but resolute, declared that if Stefan had tried to kill Emily, he would handle it himself. Lucky, a bit reluctant, handed over the tape. Nikolas returned to Windermere and confronted Stefan about Summer's murder, while Lydia secretly listened in. Nikolas pleaded for the truth, but Stefan denied harming Emily and claiming his only crime was pushing Nikolas to marry Lydia to protect him from dangerous creditors. Realizing Stefan would never be honest, Nikolas assured him that, despite everything, he still considered him a father before walking away. Spotting Lydia eavesdropping, Nikolas signaled to her to remain silent. Lucky was surprised to learn that Xander and Emily were getting married that day and prepared for the occasion. Meanwhile, Alexis brought Stefan legal documents and revealed she had been reinstated to practice law. She demanded to know how long it would take for her to regain custody of her daughter. Stefan cryptically assured her that his plan required time and admitted that he had orchestrated the scandal that framed Ned. Soon after, a police detective arrived at Windermere with an arrest warrant for Stefan. Alexis demanded an explanation, and the detective revealed that they had an audio recording of Stefan confessing to Summer's murder. Assuming Lucky was behind the arrest, Stefan dismissed the tape as doctored evidence. However, the detective stunned Stefan and Alexis by revealing that it wasn't Lucky who turned him in, it was Nikolas. At the PCPD, Stefan claims the tape Lucky provided was tampered with, and Alexis confirms it's inadmissible in court. Despite his relief, Stefan's bail request is denied. Meanwhile, Lucky and Officer Andy Capelli arrive at Windermere, where Lydia is packing. As Andy searches for evidence, Lucky demands to know why Lydia is leaving. At the PCPD, Stefan insists to Alexis that Lydia framed him, editing the tape to incriminate him. Alexis warned that they need proof to support his claim. Later, Nikolas visits Stefan, who maintains the tape is fake and that Lydia is dangerous. At Windermere, Lydia tells Lucky she tricked Stefan into confessing and fears for her life. Lucky warns that running will only make her look guilty. Alexis arrives questioning Lydia, who claims she overheard Stefan berating Darius for killing the wrong woman. Alexis cautions Lydia against perjury, but Lucky supports her account. Meanwhile, Alexis speculates that Lucky and Lydia used Darius's name as a ruse, making Stefan's confession inadmissible due to entrapment. Stefan urges Alexis to shift blame onto Lydia. Nikolas confronts Lydia, accusing her of trying to kill Emily. Lucky intervenes, challenging Nikolas's loyalty to Stefan and accusing him of wanting out of his marriage to be with Emily. Eventually, Nikolas agrees and apologizes to Lydia. Stefan attempts to convince Alexis that Lydia framed him, but Alexis points out that while the tape may be inadmissible, it still convinces the police of his guilt. Lydia later lashes out at Lucky for interfering. Alexis struggles to justify defending Stefan when she knows he targeted Emily and accidentally killed Summer instead. Lucky suggests she speak to Emily, who confirms Stefan opposed her engagement to Nikolas. When Alexis notices Emily's bracelet, a Cassadine heirloom, she realizes Nikolas is still in love with Emily. Meanwhile, Stefan taunts Lucky, predicting Lydia will abandon him, leaving him as bitter as Luke. Stefan further provokes Lucky by calling Summer untrustworthy, striking a nerve. Detective Andy Capelli, secretly working for Alcazar, arranges a payoff but almost gets caught by Lucky. Andy covers by accusing Lucky of interfering in police work. At the courthouse, Rick secures Stefan's release on a technicality, kind of like how Rick may have got off. At the
That's what I was just thinking, because this is when Alcazar was with Carly, and so that's why he's even involved in any of this.
Right.
Yeah.
At the PCPD, Lucky and his fellow Academy graduates receive their assignments as Luke arrives, furious that Lucky joined law enforcement. When Luke learns Lucky obtained Stefan's taped confession, he is stunned. Stefan and Luke later cross paths at the PCPD, where Luke is outraged that Stefan is free on a legal loophole. Luke warns that karma will catch up to him. Scott assigns Lucky to monitor Luke, reminding him that if Luke slips up, Lucky's badge is at risk. Meanwhile, Alcazar pressures Stefan over his debts and orders Andy to follow him. Lucky tries to prevent Luke from causing trouble, knowing a televised mock trial will damage his own reputation. Scott allows Lucky and Mac to search for Luke. Bobby discreetly tells Lucky where Luke might be. At the warehouse, Lucky finds Luke conducting his trial, with Stefan tied up. Though Luke scorns Lucky's interference, Lucky surprises him by siding against Stefan. Lydia testifies, affirming Stefan's confession was legitimate despite being inadmissible. Nikolas ultimately denounces Stefan, who breaks down, blaming Helena for their financial ruin. Stefan confesses he tried to eliminate Emily to protect Nikolas. At GH, Liz watches Stefan's breakdown on TV and asks Rick if Stefan is his client. Rick is taken aback by Stefan's tears and confession. Meanwhile, Luke seeks Stefan at Windermere, and Nikolas refuses to protect his uncle. Lucky arrives, warning Luke against killing Stefan. When Luke challenges Lucky to arrest him, Lucky handcuffs him for trespassing. Luke tells him their relationship is over. Scott delights in seeing Lucky bring in his father, while Luke vows that jail won't hold him. Stefan kidnaps Lucky to prevent his interference, tying him up at Windermere. Luke finds Lucky restrained but leaves him there to pursue Stefan. Stefan tries to manipulate Lydia into conceiving an heir, but Luke interrupts. Stefan pulls a knife on Lydia, leading to a standoff. Lucky arrives, firing a warning shot and ordering Luke to drop his weapon. Luke dares Lucky to shoot him, but Lucky hesitates, allowing Stefan to escape. Lucky comforts Lydia, relieved she didn't give in to Stefan's plan. Well, I would hope not. That's just gross.
Yeah.
Luke and Stefan later struggle over a knife, with Stefan ultimately driving the blade into himself, ensuring Luke is blamed for his death. Lucky finds Stefan dying, who names Luke as his killer. Lucky arrests Luke, and when Nikolas receives the news, he is devastated. Sky helps Luke evade capture, deceiving Lucky when he searches for his father. Later at a memorial, Helena arrives unfazed by Stefan's death, taunting Lucky about his new role as a cop. Meanwhile, Jax and Luke spar over Sky, while Sam drugs Jax to steal valuable cards. Eventually, Sky knocks Lucky out to prevent him from arresting Luke for Stefan's murder.
So like we said, I don't think I was really watching during this time. So I think that when I got back, finding out that Lucky was a cop, it was like, wait, what? And it makes sense. He went through all that stuff with Liz and saw how difficult the legal process was. And then he just went through it with this. And, all it took was one seemingly smart comment from Mac.
Right?
To go, maybe that's what I should do.
Yeah. There's an idea I never had.
Yeah. All right. So I guess join us on Monday as we recap this week's shows.
Have a good weekend.
And we'll meet you at the pier.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, we invite you to go to pier54podcast.com to subscribe on your favorite platform. Don't forget to leave us a review.
And you can also follow us on many social media channels. Just search for Pier54 Podcast. Also, we are not perfect, so if there is something that we missed or messed up, just let us know by emailing us at pier54podcast@gmail.com.